I mean, it's not very sexy, but the reality is like the go-to-market tech stack today is a mess overall. And I think everybody's trying to figure out how do we go from this old tech stack where nothing is integrated, everything's in a silo, to a world where we've got this like deeply integrated stack. So everybody working with customers can have all the context and like have what they need in real time. I mean, I never intended to go into revenue. It was a sort of an accidental thing for me. First, I meant to be a lawyer, and then I met somebody along the way, and we ended up playing video games, and I became a professional video gamer. That was where I took the detour towards tech, and I met a person along the way there, and he said, "Hey, I need a junior salesperson. I think I could teach you to sell." Those lessons he taught me, I was not trying to become a CRO, but if not for those lessons, I would not be one. And so it was a big transformative moment in my career. You need to have like a certain amount of confidence in your point of view about what your business is and what you're good at. And I think if you stick to that and you're true to yourself and you just focus on execution, it's kind of hard to go wrong. The risk landscape gets more complex every year, and people are asked to do more with less headcount. If you feel like it's still fuzzy, or you're in the gray zone, or you're really having to fight for those dollars, you probably don't actually really have product market fit yet. So be honest with yourself. Seek real customer feedback, not theory. Have a lot of conversations, and you will find it that way, but you have to listen to others. You can't manufacture it yourself. You know, great founders and great products expand and create that TAM, and then they like start to become something much bigger. And there's a lot of skepticism about cold calling. It works. It absolutely works. And we've had to train them. They've had to get really good at having thoughtful, educated conversations, but it absolutely works. And I think it works even better in early stage companies with limited awareness.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode of Rethink Revenue by Docket. I'm your host, Arjun Pillai. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Docket. Today, I'm super excited that we have Stevie Case, the CRO of Vanta, which we all know. If you are in tech, if you are selling to tech, then you know Vanta most probably. Thanks a lot for taking the time, Stevie. We are super excited to have you.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to have a conversation.
So let's jump right in. One thing that I always ask CROs is, what are the responsibilities that you have in your company? Because different companies define CROs in different ways. So let's start there.
They do. This is the funny thing about this role. It's very different at each company. And the truth is my role has evolved a lot since I first joined Vanta. So I've been on the journey with Vanta for about 3.5 years. And when I started with the company, my initial remit was really North American sales was the first focus. There was a clear product market fit and a lot of excitement. So it was, let's scale sales and focus on that. Over the course of the last 3.5 years, that scope has grown quite a bit. So it first expanded to include the whole customer journey. So I took on customer success and post-sales. I had a lot of excitement there, getting to rebuild some of those functions. Then expanded to take on the international team. So I've now got a fully global team, including sales development, sales, who focuses primarily new logo for us, account management. I've also got customer success. I've got revenue operations and everything that goes with it. And now we've got channel and partnerships as well, which is a function that didn't exist at all 3.5 years ago. So it's grown quite a lot. And as of today, more than 500 folks globally on my team.
Wow, that's a lot to do. So pretty much everything in the revenue function other than marketing. That's probably the better way to say it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And in your journey, I know you were at Twilio before, and at Vanta, would you say that you are selling more to the mid-market zone or enterprise zone? How should the listeners think about when you give a point? How should they normalize it? In which segment?
Yeah. It's interesting. So Vanta now sells in every segment, and this makes us unique. It is also how it was at Twilio. We could sell to any company. We used to make a game of coming up with a challenge. Can you think of any company we can't sell to? And the answer was always no. And that's becoming true at Vanta as well. So we do have like our bread and butter business with startups. It's certainly what we started with and we're known for. So we've got a huge business helping startups become compliant for the first time. But we also sell tremendous amount in the mid-market and in enterprise as well. So these days we're serving even Fortune 100 enterprises and helping them navigate risk observability and managing trust in their business.
Got you. And in your journey, you've been in the revenue journey from start and then grew to that revenue leadership. What are a couple of inflection points that you thought, okay, you know what, this is my launch pad that's kind of propelling me forward? Or it could be people or it could be events. What would you say are those points?
I mean, I never intended to go into revenue. It was a sort of an accidental thing for me. I was first, I meant to be a lawyer, and then I met somebody along the way, and we ended up playing video games, and I became a professional video gamer. That was where I took the detour towards tech. But I started out on the product side of the house. I was building software myself. And I met a person along the way there who approached me. He was actually one of my vendors. And he said, "Hey, I need a junior salesperson. I think I could teach you to sell." I have no idea what made him think that because I don't think I showed any signs that I was anybody that could do sales. But bless him, Matt Golden, I owe him my career because he really did. He took me on as a junior salesperson. He took me on the road and he showed me what selling looked like and how to do it well and like how to be a human who is selling things but still authentic. And he really taught me the basics, and I'm grateful I got that opportunity in the olden days pre-pandemic where we did this in person on the road selling to people. So we would go on these road trips and just take meeting after meeting after meeting, and he provided me great real-time feedback about how I sold, and he taught me. So that was one big inflection point. And then from there, that was a good 18 years ago now. From there, I've had all sorts of different stops along the way. I really have liked going back and forth between being a quota carrier, carrying a bag, and then being in sales leadership. The other big inflection point for me was at Twilio, where we had a COO show up, George Hu. George had been Benioff's right-hand guy at Salesforce. He was just brilliant guy, very analytical. And he gave me exposure to something I had not really seen before, which was the playbook and methodology for how you scale an organization. And I got to go through that journey at Twilio. When I started, we were around 500 people. When I left, it was more than 9,000. And the revenue went from about 200 million to 3.5 billion. And George, I'm so grateful to him. He let me really ride along and understand that Salesforce playbook and how you think about scaling an organization and what it takes and how to manage managers. And those lessons he taught me. I was not trying to become a CRO, but if not for those lessons, I would not be one. And so it was a big transformative moment in my career.
It's so interesting how a couple of people can really change where we started and where we end up. If you can go back like that 15 years back, would you still want to get into revenue or would you want to continue with product now that you have the benefit?
I would absolutely. I wish I could go earlier in my life and make this pivot. I am very passionate about this work now. And I don't consider myself a traditional salesperson. I've been very successful at it. When I got to Twilio, I decided I wanted to be a quota carrier again. So I actually started in an AE role there, even though I had been in sales leadership for several years, because I love it. I love carrying a bag. There's something about the mix of it's tech. I love very technical sales. So the mix of technology and product and people and humanity and the math, it's like a little bit of everything. And I am really passionate about it. So if I could go back early in my life, I wish I knew this was a career option when I was much younger. And I don't think I would have been I would have understood it was a good role for me. But yeah, I am glad I'm here. I'll just say that.
For all those youngsters out there thinking about sales as a career, it's an amazing career. So you have been now at Vanta for a little over 3.5 years, getting, I guess, closer to that 4 years mark. And the world has gone through a tremendous amount of transition in the same 4 years. What have you seen in these years as the revenue leader? What has happened in the last 4 years?
I mean, these 4 years have been interesting, just huge amounts of change, macroeconomic change, obviously landscape shifts in technology. We've had our own change within the competitive landscape of our business. So, through all that change, I think that's always true. No matter when you lead a business, you are going to deal with these kind of strategic seismic shifts in the universe. My biggest lesson in all of that is you have to know what your North Star is. I think a lot of folks get distracted by the shiny object or like the shifting landscape and think, oh, we need to be something totally different. You need to have like a certain amount of confidence in your point of view about what your business is and what you're good at. And I think if you stick to that and you're true to yourself and you just focus on execution, it's kind of hard to go wrong. You pick a direction, you just push really hard because we've seen these shifts. We saw initially, I joined when the market was very, very hot. And about 2 months later, market cooled down quite a lot. So there was this
This was
huge shift.
2021.
2022. So I joined
Yeah.
in March of 22,
Yeah.
and it was like 2, 3 months
Yes.
later, there was a big shift and everybody was like, oh
Right.
my gosh, like this is bad. And so we had to do a little bit of recalibration through that. But ultimately, the things that make a business great, if they are real, they remain true. The truth at the core of our business is people need to be compliant. Their businesses need to ship software that's compliant. The risk landscape gets more complex every year, and people are asked to do more with less headcount. Those realities are the fundamental realities that make Vanta a great business. And so we've remained true to those. We've focused on a very high quality customer experience and we've focused on execution. And all of those things have remained powerful and have moved us in the right direction, regardless of those sort of macro shifts in the world.
Understood. So for somebody who is listening, how do they think about deciding on that North Star? You mentioned that this is the market, this is the landscape, this is why Vanta as a company should exist. That's I guess, the mission of the company. But how do you go from there to the North Star?
Yeah, I think that like you can't force it is one reality. Product market fit is this very real thing. And I think that like it's very tempting to simplify it and say, well, if a company gets to 1 million or 5 million in ARR, that's product market fit. I no longer see the world that way at all. Product market fit is something visceral that you can feel and you can hear it from your prospects and customers. You can hear it when you talk to them that there is real pain that your product addresses. Vanta started out with this like very simple use case of helping founders get SOC 2 compliant. We are now a very robust AI trust management platform. But at the heart of that is the same mission. We're still helping customers to earn and prove trust in their business. And I think every business can identify what is that core thing. They can get to product market fit, which to me means more like you can find repeatable opportunity. And in each of those opportunities, you can say in plain language, what is the pain you're addressing for your customer? And then you can connect that to math. Like, are people willing to pay for it or not? And it should be very clear. If you feel like it's still fuzzy or you're in the gray zone or you're really having to fight for those dollars, you probably don't actually really have product market fit yet. So be honest with yourself. Seek real customer feedback, not theory. Have a lot of conversations and you will find it that way, but you have to listen to others. You can't manufacture it yourself.
Understood. And now that we are in 2025, almost ending, I guess, what are one or two things that are keeping you up at night as the CRO?
Always. There's always something keeping me up at night.
Yeah.
I think that like the landscape is super interesting right now. Obviously, we had this wave of AI native companies. I am very bullish on AI. We are weaving AI into our product. But I think that there are some interesting dynamics within that landscape of AI native companies. I think that the margin profiles are a little challenging. I think that a lot of those folks, that this wave of companies, they all built these like prosumer kind of almost B2C looking go-to-market models. And that can be very successful. It won't take you all the way. Like every one of those companies at some point is going to have to build a real go-to-market team. And I think a lot of them will struggle to do that. So I think we're in for like an interesting next 12 months as some of those companies hit that reality and have to figure out go-to-market. And it's just like the dynamics of the AI landscape change. So it feels very unknown in that sense. But the reality is, and this is the beauty of diversifying the types of customers you sell to, we now sell not just into startups, but into mid-market enterprise. Enterprises endure, they are around for the ages through all of these kind of technology shifts and market changes. So no matter what happens in the chaos of Silicon Valley, enterprises still have real pain points that need to be solved that stay pretty consistent year to year. So that's one way I think about mitigating the risk of the changing world is, we sell to lots of different folks and their needs continue on.
As Vanta as a company, do you think that the TAM is a problem for Vanta, like in terms of how much you can sell to? Do you think of it like net new logos or expanding your existing customers? How are you thinking the TAM expansion?
Yeah, I mean, one I will say is I have zero concern about TAM. It's kind of comical. Like I think if you would have asked me 3 years ago, am I concerned about TAM? I would have told you I'm still studying it. The reality today, especially now that we are a trust management platform and we have a solution that addresses problems for customers of all sizes, we aren't even scratching the surface of the TAM. I think that we are, sub 5% penetration of that TAM right now, because there is this simple automated compliance use case at the heart of our platform, helping founders do SOC 2, helping large enterprises get FedRAMP compliant. Like that alone is a great use case, but we do a lot more than that. And the reality is that a lot of our enterprise customers today think of us more like a risk observability platform than an audit readiness platform. So they're using us to measure, manage, and mitigate risk in their businesses. And the audit readiness thing is just like one of the many things that they're doing with us. They're looking at third-party risk. They're looking at regulatory risk. They're looking at financial risk. And, the universe of that risk is enormous. So I have no concerns that the TAM is limited. If anything, I think like can we execute fast enough to capture yet more and more of that? Because I think we've got a really strong value prop for companies of all sizes.
Yeah, I mean, I am not an investor. Typically, a TAM question is an investor question. As a founder, I always believe that to the right operator, the TAM will keep expanding. Whether it
Yes.
is Salesforce, when they had a 20 million total TAM, 20 billion when they started in its wildest dreams. Today it is
Yep.
$45 billion in revenue.
This
I
is
was at
super
Zoom
cool.
Info. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and one interesting thing about what Vanta's founding. So our founder, Christina, she created this market. She went out and she identified this problem. She's a product person and she identified this pain point of people who build software having to get SOC 2 compliant. And she started by just building a spreadsheet that was essentially a checklist and was asking founders, like, is this helpful to you? And they're like, oh my gosh, I would pay you for the spreadsheet. And so that was sort of the beginning. And then she worked to automate it. A lot of extremely reputable investors passed on Vanta in the early days because they thought, oh, like how many SOC 2s are there in the world? Like
Mhm.
there can't be more than 1,000. It's like a very small universe. So I think a lot of early investors were thinking about it in terms of this very limited TAM, and they didn't consider exactly what you just said, which is, great founders and great products expand and create that TAM, and then they like start to become something much bigger. And so that SOC 2, it was like a great first anchor, but it was really a part of a much larger picture about managing trust in businesses.
Yeah. Let me take a slightly different tangent. One thing that our listeners really like is to understand some examples of what is working and what is not working for you at this point in time. What would you say are like a couple of things that are like really working for you and like used to work but not working anymore?
Yeah. So one thing that's working really well is like our core sales engine. So we have incredibly high efficiency. We've got salespeople just unbelievably productive on the new logo side of the business. They are
Break
just,
that down. What I
they,
mean by that is you are talking about the quota carrying reps hitting quota, like the
yep.
sales phase is like really good. Is that
Yes. Yeah, very clean, very good. We've got the math nailed. We can onboard new reps and make them successful in a very short amount of time. Like that core engine is extremely effective. So the part of that that has been harder that we've really had to change is if you flash back 3.5 years when I arrived, all of the pipeline that our sales reps were working was 100% inbound pipeline. And the way we worked it was pretty simplistic. We did basic discovery, we might do a basic demo, and then we kind of got a signature. Like it was very, very simple.
yeah,
And that's great as long as it works, but that has an end date on it. And
sure.
if you want to scale your org, obviously you need to figure out several things. One of those is how to generate more pipeline, because in those early days 100% of our pipeline was coming from search engine marketing. And again, like there's a ceiling on how far that goes. So the things we've had to learn and change have been how to generate more pipeline. We went through a phase of where we diversified the way we generate pipeline from marketing. The next big push, and this has been our biggest push, and the thing we had to do this year was go very big on SDR. So we had a few SDRs in the past. This year, we went from roughly a dozen SDRs to more than 100. And it was this huge investment in humans, but it was really a new discipline for us to develop this true outbound muscle and make it work. So the reality, anytime you start with something like that, is you got to have clean math and clean expectations, but you also have to understand it is going to take time. So it's messy at first. You throw a lot of humans at a problem, you ask them to start figuring it out. And, by the end of the year here, as we're coming into it, those folks are now very productive. But it's a big transformation, a different way to work. We've had to teach AEs to work with their SDRs. We've had to develop new methodology. We needed new tools. We needed new messaging. We needed a way to update our messaging on a regular basis. It's a whole new engine that we've had to build.
And do you think that your SDRs at this kind of a scale is working better right now because Vanta has an established brand? Or do you think that like a new company, let's say a Series A company without that kind of a brand will still be able to put SDRs and really drive? What do you think is working there?
I think it works because we have product market fit. I think you can make it work early stage. If you have a compelling product with a solid value prop and you know roughly who your buyer is, SDR can be incredibly effective. And I think a lot of founders are uncomfortable with the idea of SDR because a lot of founders are uncomfortable with the idea of sales generally.
Sales itself,
They want
yeah.
people to, yeah, they want people to buy the product because it's a great product. They don't like the idea that you're going to have salespeople out like sending cold emails. A lot of founders are allergic to that idea. But what I will tell you is that it is effective and it works. And it is actually more effective if you don't have a lot of market awareness, because it is a human sending a human message and adapting that message and then having a conversation. And that works one to one. The big thing we had to learn this year is that we do still do some email, but the vast majority of our leads are created by our SDRs cold calling. And there's a lot of skepticism about cold calling. It works. It absolutely works. And we've had to train them. They've had to get really good at having thoughtful, educated conversations, but it absolutely works. And I think it works even better in early stage companies with limited awareness.
Interesting. And that probably dovetails to my next segment that typically always without AI, you cannot complete a podcast these days. So how much AI are you using at the company? We'll come to your personal in a minute, but how much AI is being used across your stack? Or like in other words, where is it most useful right now for you?
We are really focused on using AI to supercharge our humans. So we do not today think about AI as a way to replace humans. Instead, what we're doing is we started with a focus on efficiency. So we started with a project to identify, can we take 10 hours a week of busy work off the plates of our quota carriers? So that was mission one. We are basically coming to the close of that. We have achieved that mission. And we did that through a lot of small things. So we've got this AI innovation team, and they have built tons of workflows that's like, we did a time study. We asked our quota carriers, where do you spend time? And we just started down that list. So it was like call prep and research. Great. We can automate that. Putting together the right message for this specific buyer persona. Great. We can automate that. So now we automate like pre-call research and prep. We automate post-call follow-up. So we give the reps like this templated response based on the recording, based on what they talked about with the customer, they will send this follow-up. So we're just automating lots of those pieces. So then they can do the higher value, harder lift things. So that was mission number one. After we did that, we started thinking about how do we take what our top performers do and automate those plays. So it was a little more strategic and targeted. So we can democratize great performance, make it possible for everybody to perform better. And then the third part of the mission was empowering everybody with AI. So we implemented an agentic platform. We're using Dust, and everybody has access. They can build their own agents, and we expect our ICs to go build their own agents to help them with common workflows. And we're seeing a lot of our team now build their own agents to get the work done.
Yeah, and let me ask a controversial one. Over a period of time, do you still think AI is going to be like additive tool to people, or do you foresee a future where there is displacement happening?
I really think it continues to just support human work. Like, will it replace simple workflows? Sure. I don't see any workflows in my own company that I think will be fully replaced by AI. I think that like there is this rising tide that gets created by the automation of the less intense workflows that will just allow humans to do more and more thoughtful work. But I think sales is fundamentally a human endeavor. I think it's always going to take humans buying from humans. And, I just look forward to that team being able to do the more interesting, more strategic work instead of the busy work.
Personally, in your work life, what are some of the AI things that you are using right now that you feel at a CRO level or as a revenue leader, this is really good?
I use it a lot. I use just straight up Chat GPT a lot, Claude a lot. I've come to really use it as a thought partner, if that makes sense. So I do use it for some of the busy work tasks, but where I really get a lot of value is when I'm trying to think through something more strategic. Like I'm trying to think through product feedback or how I think we should evolve the company strategy. And what I'll do is give it the context, give it all of my previous documents and things I'm working on, and then I'll talk to it and really just share my unfiltered thoughts and then use that to formulate what I'm trying to say in a more thoughtful way. So it becomes this like thought partner to iterate with. And I've actually been able to come up with some really powerful suggestions out of that and like ways to talk about the business. And so it's almost like my right hand thought partner on a lot of this stuff. So that's my favorite way to use it. But honestly, AI is woven into pretty much all of my workflows at this point.
And what are some of the things that you wish existed today? Like, if there are builders who are listening to it, hopefully they won't send all the emails to you pitching you, but what are some of the things that you want to get in the next 12 months or 24 months?
I mean, it's not very sexy, but the reality is like the go-to-market tech stack today is a mess overall. And I think everybody's trying to figure out how do we go from this old tech stack where nothing is integrated, everything's in a silo, to a world where we've got this like deeply integrated stack. So everybody working with customers can have all the context and like have what they need in real time. So I don't have a great solution to this. I don't necessarily think the answer is like rip out everything old and start with a new one platform, but I think there's got to be a solution. Like I think of Zapier as like a consumery solution that did such a great job tying a bunch of systems together without a lot of technical expertise. There has to be something like that for go-to-market that's going to allow us to move out of this world where you've got to buy 50 different solutions and then integrate them to something that's just more thoughtful about the entire customer journey. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen it yet. I don't necessarily think every platform is adding AI features and functionality. I don't know that that's it, but I think that there is a world that's going to look quite different, and the go-to-market tech stack is going to look very different a couple of years from now.
Yeah, the crazy thing is almost every vendor will think that they check mark what exactly you mentioned in their heads. I ran into this, yesterday I was at an event and then somebody suggested a tool. We know this company, it's a pretty, and the company, I respect the company. I was asking, hey, who has done this? And somebody said, use this tool. And I went back and said, they kind of claim they do it, but they don't. Then I realized that after everything that person was the VP at that company. Like,
Yep, that sounds right.
it was a close group of like 30 people. So like, no big harm done. And factually what I said was true. So nobody kind of refuted it. But yeah, I went into that yesterday. So everybody believes that they are the solution for what you just mentioned. Out of these, 10,000 point solutions, I am that glue that ties everything.
Right.
I have a platform that ties everything. But I think you're absolutely right that we haven't seen something that works seamlessly across everything, at least taking care of a significant chunk of what we want to do.
Yeah, I think that there are things out there that are getting super interesting. Like Clay is the closest thing to this today because they started with data enrichment. Now they've got this Claygen, and you can put pieces together. And I think that the approach is smart because the one thing I see that a lot of new tools, like a lot of the new AI native tools that folks are bringing out, you're right. They think that they're it, and they think that their platform is the be all end all. But the reality is, it's like, man, everybody's got these huge tech stacks. You're not going to just rip everything and start with one new platform. You got to be thoughtful about how you can tie together old tech with new, how you can unify workflows. And that's why I think something that's a little more like API agent, like flexible first is going to be the way. But it requires that go-to-market engineering teams and RevOps teams become something completely different that is much more engineering than it is admin. And that's a real change. And it's going to require the talent to change in that area of the business.
Awesome. Let's get to the last segment of the podcast, Stevie. This is more like rapid fire, not necessarily rapid fire, but quick answers to questions that our folks really love to get. What advice would you give an aspiring revenue leader today?
The world is going to keep changing. The most important thing you can do is be curious and just ask a lot of questions. You've got to have a great network. Nobody has all the answers. So be willing to do anything and be curious. Those are the two most important qualities.
Let me follow up there. You said build a great network. A lot of people are thinking, but how? Like, what's your tip for building a great network?
I think a lot of people approach this in like a classic way, like they do cold outbound emails and all that. But the reality is everybody's inbox is completely flooded. I had a guy a couple weeks ago, who showed up to San Francisco, wanted feedback on his product. So he started posting these interesting posts on LinkedIn. He tagged a few people and he started walking around San Francisco. And I happened to be in the office that day. So I said, come on in. And we had a conversation. I think it's like those more human interactions and like being bold enough to really try to connect with people in real life. It seems old school, but very few people do that now. So show up, be a human being, be real, and I think you'll get a better response.
And when hiring salespeople, account executives, do you have like a favorite question or like an approach that you use that people can kind of take?
Yeah, I mean, one, I would say discovery to me is the whole game. So if somebody's good at discovery, generally speaking, they're going to be successful in the role. I like to ask a question about grit. So I'm looking for somebody that's got the drive and the hustle to survive and like get creative and make it work. So I often like to ask people, like, what's something you had to work a really long time at to accomplish? Like, tell me a story, and it doesn't have to be at work, something in your life that you worked a long time to achieve, and what kept you motivated through that. And if you find somebody who's really got that drive, that's what I'm looking for.
Got you. What's one revenue metric that you think is not getting enough appreciation in go-to-market conversations?
I kind of want to say net retention, but the reality is, like, probably It's probably conversion, generally speaking. Conversion at all stages of the funnel, it's like nobody's favorite metric, but it's probably the single most important thing you need to be looking at is like, how are things moving along and why? If you can
Mhm.
really nail that and get predictable conversion, you're good to go.
I at my company, I focus on opportunity to
Yep.
pilot to close one. Those are the
Yep.
two that I look at. If I look at both of them, then I kind of know whether it's happening or not. So I agree. Uh, is there a book or a podcast or a resource that you would recommend to the GTM leaders?
Ooh. I mean, I always love it's such an old school classic, but like the Challenger sale is still worth a read. There's something about like that framing of presenting the world in a different way to your buyer and being comfortable challenging them. That methodology still applies. That is still a real thing. So I still recommend that to folks. I think too, like go out and listen to Kyle Norton's doing a great podcast these days. He's got some great leaders and he's one of the
Yeah.
more thoughtful CROs out there. So I'd go listen to him as well.
Yeah, Kyle is awesome. Shout out to you, Kyle.
You like
He's my favorite too. And I agree with the Challenger sale as well because these days, especially with AI, in many cases, the builders are a little bit more experts on the AI front and
Yes.
than the buyers, right? So you actually have an ability to challenge them respectfully in some of their thought processes. And even if you convert a small percentage of that, you have some big customers to name.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. That's
Last
right.
question, completely in your lane. Where do you expect Vanta to be in terms of go-to-market evolution by the end of 2026? And you will be like, yes, I think we made it.
Oh my gosh. So we've got a lot to accomplish over the next year and a half. By the end of 2026, I think that if the world knows and deeply understands that we are a complex platform, not just automated compliance, but if they deeply understand that we can help with third party risk, that we can help with all of these different aspects of managing risk in your business, then our mission will have been accomplished because we are, so deeply associated with that compliance that doesn't sock too much. And that is our bread and butter. But we do so much more than that today. By the end of next year, if the world is fully aware of that, we will no doubt be winning.
Yeah, I know how challenging that is. You know, a lot of companies have like this one thing that they're absolutely known for, and they become like 10 other things in terms of platform, but to scale to this different brand is always very, very difficult. With that, Stevie, it has been a blast. Thanks a lot for such an open conversation. I thought it had a lot of tidbits as well as the strategic things. That's my favorite episodes. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.